This video is about how to recognize a dull chisel blade or planer blade and how to sharpen them again. Working with a dull tool is guaranteed to either be, it's first of all dangerous because the tool doesn't react the way you want and it requires more force, so you want to always have a sharp tool. It also is easier to work with and provides better finish quality. So your tools need to be sharp when we're working with chisels and with planes. To tell if a chisel is sharp, there's a couple of different things you can do. You can see if it cuts through paper easily. That's a good test, a good safe test. You take a piece of paper and you just press on the end. If it slices into the paper with very little force, you've got your tool is nice and sharp. Over time, you'll be able to feel when the tool is sharp. If it's leaving ridges when you're planing, for example, and there's ridges left, then that's a sure sign that it's dull. Another way is a little bit riskier is if you just push it on your fingernail, and if it catches easily, then it's sharp. I have here a dull one, and you can see how it slides on my fingernail. That means it's dull. And this one will also not cut easily into paper. It just doesn't cut into the paper, so that this one needs to be sharpened. The other way to tell is looking right on the end, and if you see light reflecting, come on here, focus in. If you see light, come on, it's not focusing. If you see light reflecting off the very end of your blade, and you can see little nicks and things, then it's for sure dull, and you need to sharpen it. Well, the way we use to sharpen here in class is over here, there's the sink behind me. This is the front of the class. Sitting on this table right here, I usually have a box with a whetstone in it. Now that box I have moved for this video. It's right here on this corner of this workbench. This is to help so we can see easier what to do. So we have a whetstone inside here. It's just in water. It has to be submerged in water. Water helps to take the filings of the metal off when you're sharpening it. We also have a jig that's kept right here, and this is going to help maintain the angle. After a while, like if I'm doing this, I usually don't use a jig because you can feel the right angle and if you can maintain it. But as a beginner, you should use a jig to ensure that we have the consistent quality. Now to use this, if you look at the jig, there are two different places you can mount things. In this area here is for chisels. As you spin this little dial on the side, it opens it up and you can stick a chisel in here. Okay, now the chisel is mounted in there and we tighten it up with a screwdriver when it's at the right spot. For plane blades, they're a little wider. These go in the top groove here. Okay, can you see that? They fit in between this top area. All right, that's what this jig does. So we're going to do a chisel first. So I'm going to mount the chisel. Now, depending on the chisel and the angle, it'll change where you put this. Now, there's these little notches in the corner of the jig. You want to try to get that on the corner of your the chisel. Now, important thing is the bevel, which is where the angle is cut, is on the same side as the wheel. It has to be that way or it won't work. Now, to know exactly how far we put this, on the corner of the box here, I have on the right side a line that says chisel, and over here on the left side, can you see that? I have one that says plane. Okay, that changes the angle that we set this. So right here, there's a line that says chisel. What I'm going to do is bump the edge of, bump the edge of the jig up against the edge of the box, and then I'm going to slide the chisel back and forth until the end of it is lined up with the chisel line. At that point, I'm going to tighten this screw by hand, and then reinforce it by tightening it a bit more with a screwdriver. Okay, a slotted screwdriver. Okay, so once we have that, then it's time to set up with our whetstone. We put the whetstone up in this jig on the top of the box here. The way this works is the wheel Let's see, can you see this a little better? I'm going to maybe move to the other. I'll bring this way. The wheel on this rubs on the top of the stone, and you slide it back and forth, and it sharpens. The stone rubs on the steel here and sharpens it. The important part is that it's held down firmly. So I'm putting this on the stone, holding it down firmly with my fingers. And sliding back and forth. I might splash a bit of water up on top here to clear the shavings, and keep going. What I'm looking for is that on the end here, I'm actually cutting at the very end of the chisel. If you notice that, it takes a bit of time to be able to recognize this, but if it's only cutting on this edge here and not on the very cutting edge, it's not doing anything. So you want to do that until you can see that you've shaved all the way across. All right, and then this is critical. You want to put the plane on its or the blade on its back. Okay, right on its back, and you're pushing down here now with your fingers, and now you're sliding back and forth. This is doing the back side. Just a couple of strokes. That's all it takes. Very important that you do not raise the handle. If you raise the handle, we're going to mess everything up. The handle has to stay stationary, and the pressure is down here as you move back and forth. What we're doing is flattening the back just a little bit, taking off any burrs, and maybe a pull back on the front, and that makes a big difference already. We could go a little more with this one, but it's already starting to catch on my finger now, which is a good sign. That's the first step of getting this sharp. We're using this brown stone. That's an 800 grit, which is a little bit, could have a coarser one. And I may create another video one day where I have a coarser. You should work through it with like sandpaper, where you start with a coarse one, move to a medium one, and then finish with one that'll polish it off. I'm going to get those stones too. Same process with the planer blade, except instead of using the chisel end here to tell where to go, you use the opposite end here where there's a line for the planer. Okay, so you mount it in there and press down with your fingers back and forth until the stone shaves off that anything that's dull and creates a nice sharp point again. Once you have put an edge on your chisel with the whetstone at the front of the clasp, we're going to move more along the middle of the clasp. There's a dedicated sharpening machine here, right here, that we use for sharpening or for honing and refining the edge of the blade we've just done. What we're going to use is this black wheel here that has leather on it. Now, what leather does is it will polish that edge to make it a very sharp, clean edge. To do that, we have to match the angle of the back and the bevel to our wheel. So if you look closely right here, maybe you can see it, there's a bit of a gap in between the top of the blade and the wheel. If I bring the chisel down a little bit until that little black spot between the blade and the wheel disappears, I know I have the right angle. All right, let's get this lined up again. So I'm starting higher than I need to be and looking here to see this little black line, the gap that's there. And as I bring this down, and the moment that black spot disappears, I know I'm at the right angle. If I go too far, I'm going to make my blade dull again because I'm not following the same angle that's on the chisel. Start high, lower it down until that black line disappears. Then with your your index finger, put it up against this bar and grab a hold of that chisel so that stays at that spot. The switch to turn this thing on is back here. You switch it on, and now I'm going to be, with my other hand, pressing down right here. And as I press down, it's going to begin to polish the back of that blade. Now let's take a look. So if you see clearly, it's almost like a mirror finish here now on the back. And that's the first step, doing the back. Now we're going to follow the same sequence to do the bevel. So we're going to put this on to the blade, or the wheel, fairly high. And then, let's see, can you see the black line there? In between the chisel and the wheel? Now I'm going to bring the chisel down until that black line just disappears. And then I know that that's my angle. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, same thing, index finger on the bar, lock it in with my thumb, turn it on, and press down here with my other fingers, holding that angle. And what that's doing now is, it's polishing that surface and giving us a nice firm, or a nice angle. Now, there's sometimes a little bit of black gunk on there. You have to wipe that off carefully with a rag or something. Now you'll look and you should see that it's almost like a mirror finish on the end. And now it will cut paper really well, and it should easily catch into your fingernail. Very careful when you're doing that. But it should cut through paper really well. That's how you hone. That's the next step of sharpening your blade. Now it's ready to go, and this will be as sharp as, you can probably get it sharper with some other equipment, but for in the class, for everything we're doing, this is really, really quite sharp. It's almost razor sharp. You can probably shave with it. All right, so this is the next step to getting your blades perfectly sharp.